I did my presentation on the role of coherence in standards-based learning. Basically what I was looking at was the possibility of raising student achievement, raising rigor, things like that with standards. Looking at all the high-performing countries, the ones that outperform us on most math, science, assessments, one of the things they have in common is uniform, nationally set standards, to the set that if you were to go in one classroom in, say, Japan, and then go in another classroom in another city completely away, they're going to be pretty similar. We've obviously gone through a couple years of trying to do this with Common Core and things, but it's become very politicized, and we've gotten away from it, whether or not educationally it's what's best for students. So I did a s'more, and I'm going to include the link of the s'more in the this video on YouTube, where you see basically coherence allows us to do connections, transitions, and pathways all together of a curriculum. My stakeholders for the s'more were, I did 4 of them. The first 3 were students, teachers, and parents and community members. Obviously in education, students are our most important group that we are going to have as far as stakeholders, and sometimes we get the less talk about. We talk about these other groups to pull into the school, but everything we do in education is for the students. Everything that we try to implement, every innovation, is to try to improve the experience of the students in general. Coherence is no different. Many of the articles that I read and annotated for my bibliography talked about the redundancy of standards and topics, that they learn the same thing. I've heard several students myself, including my children, mention that they're doing the same thing they did last year, that there's nothing different. The repetitiveness, I think this takes some of the engagement, some of the enthusiasm away from education. The changeover, working as an administrator, I have students come in and their classes, from where they came from, they take different classes at different times. Obviously, even if they're in the same class, they may or may not have covered the same issues, been at the same spot. It creates a lot of problems, especially in state-tested, state-assessed areas where you have students changing from one school into another school, potentially even within the same district, just 2 different classrooms could have a problem. At my own school, it's sometimes, depending on the teachers, depending on the people, sometimes a problem to make sure they are not doing the same thing, but in the same place, so that we can assess and grow. And so as you spread that out, it just gets worse and worse. For teachers, obviously another huge stakeholder in this group, teachers are exasperated, I think. Teachers are fed up with the constant change. There's almost a lack of participation at times because they just feel it's going to change again by the time they keep on doing it. So I'll just do what I've been doing, what's working, because I know this is going to change eventually. There's also what all humans have, we don't like change. So the idea of yet another change brings a lot of discomfort. So you really need to spend some time on that initiation stage, as Fulton would say, the why, building capacity, loving your employees. Those types of things are going to be what you really need to spend time on with your teachers to try to sell this curriculum and buy into its delivery of just a nationally coherent curriculum where we get deeper meaning, not this wide breadth of knowledge. One of the research articles discussed the fact that due to political pressure, we add and add and add standards, but we're very hesitant to take them away. And we need teacher support to cut some of those standards. Parents, community members, this is a lot of the politicization. of things against Common Core. There are plenty of people that it's a political issue for. They don't have a clue what Common Core says. They've never read a standard. They are either a member of one or the other political party, and they think it is something that they should be against. It is a overreach of federal government. One of the studies I read said something that I included that I thought was very powerful, that we are not one school system in the United States. We're about 15,000, and they're all fragmented. Parents and community members need to be engaged to see the necessity of coherence among our standards, of why that will allow us to reach a much greater depth of learning for our students and stop us from just taking test takers, or creating test takers rather, excuse me. So we need to do better with that and getting them on board. My final group was district and state administrators. These are the people that are going to drive change, that are going to have to try to make it happen. They're also the ones that are the most susceptible to political pressure. They deal with your school boards, they deal with your State Department of Education, and the politicians around that. And politicians by nature are winds of change agents. I mean, they just kind of blow one way or another, while schools need some time. Innovation needs time. Fooling states that just the initiation stage could take 3, 4, 5 years, much less before implementation, continuation, things like that. And when you have a school board that changes every couple years, you have a governor who's going to appoint a new secretary of education, the same thing at the federal level, then it's going to be hard to get that continuity. It's going to be hard to stay through. So getting buy-in on that side and making it something where we don't look at an issue of political expediency, we don't look at cost that it's going to take to revamp the assessments we already have, that we look purely at what's best for the students. And that doesn't happen very often, and hasn't happened for us. All these other issues get caught up into it. So that was the reason they were my 4 main stakeholder groups. I apologize for the video. I tried to figure out a way to record my iPad screen. It wouldn't let me, and unfortunately my laptop doesn't have a microphone. So thank you. Hope it wasn't too boring.